Right now, the day's biggest news stories from a Vegas perspective. This is the Vegas Take with Sharp and Shapiro.
All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro. Chris Wynn in studio here as well on a Monday. Also streaming live on the Vegas Take YouTube page. As we speak, you can see our mugs right now. I certainly have a face for radio. I've heard that one before. Coming up here in just a minute, we'll be joined by Showtime Shawn Porter, one of the best pound-for-pound boxers in the world. And as I mentioned myself, I was at the Canelo fight over the weekend at MGM Grand. And, you know, it wasn't a horrible fight. I thought the first 5 or 6 rounds kind of a little bit of a snooze fest, and I thought Kovalev was winning the fight. I really did. And a lot of people that were sitting, I was sitting pretty close to the ring, and a lot of people that were boxing insiders. I wouldn't consider myself a boxing insider by any stretch, but a lot of people agreed that it was a fairly close fight. But a lot of people had Kovalev winning the fight, and then all of a sudden he goes down in the 11th round, TKO, and Canelo wins another one. And are they setting it up for possibly a Triple G rematch? That I don't know, but you have to give Canelo credit where credit is due. He's won in 4 different weight classes, 4 different divisions. It is extremely impressive. So the guy joining us in studio right now, he is the champ himself. This man who's been on the show before, he has 30 wins and 3 losses. And he's a 2-time welterweight world champion, having held the WBC title from 2018 to 2019, previously the IBF title from 2013, 2014. And, of course, I want to talk to him about the fight he had just a little bit over a month ago against Spence Jr. The man himself, Showtime, Shawn Porter. Showtime.
What's up, my man?
Thanks for being here, man. How are you?
Listen, man, I'm sorry I'm late.
That's okay.
I was working. I don't have a job, but, I was at the track working out. So
yeah, it's good to see you. It's always good to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Man, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I was really elated to see your text message when you text me. So thanks for
I appreciate that. You're one of the nicest guys I know. I mean that 100%.
Yeah, no.
So there's so much to talk to you about. I want to talk about your fight you had last month, and it was a great fight.
Thank you.
Before we get to that, something controversial in the sport of boxing. I'm sure you heard about this. I was at the Canelo fight over the weekend.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to watch the fight?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so what do you make of them forcing everybody, including the fighters and the people in the crowd, to wait an hour and a half to the end for the end of the UFC fight? That isn't that an embarrassment to the sport of boxing?
It's ridiculous. And I was reading about it last night.
Mm-hmm.
CEO of UFC, he said it plain and simple. And I believe him. He said, I told Oscar De La Hoya, I warned him that I was going to do a show on this night and not to do it. And it should have been taken care of from there. That's bad business. It leaves but it's a bad impression on the sport of boxing.
I mean, have you ever seen anything like that before?
Oh, it was terrible. It was terrible. I mean,
what would you do as a fighter, as a professional boxer like yourself? You have to wait there for an extra hour and a half. I would imagine you've had some fights before yours that went the distance and took a while. But this is a different circumstance. There's nobody in the ring, right?
If there was absolutely nothing going on and I wasn't in the ring doing what I was being paid to do, I would have an extremely big problem with that. And I'm sure Canelo has had some conversations with his promoters since that fight.
How do they allow that to happen? I know this DAZN. Have you heard of this company? DAZN, or I've never even heard of them before.
Yeah, I mean, that's the separation there. I mean, if it's network television, you can't do that. You can't stop the show.
Right.
But this is paid internet, whatever.
And this is one of the biggest fights of the year. You had one last month too. But this is a Canelo Alvarez fight.
This was a big move for Canelo, moving up to 175 pounds.
Thank you. Yes.
This was a big deal. That alone. Nevertheless, he's going against Kovalev, known as the Crusher. So this was big. So I think because of that, Oscar's like, we can't let the show go on. But nevertheless, they should not have prevented this fight from going on. It should have happened, and you should just be able to compete. You put yourself in line to compete.
Right.
Now you got to do it.
Well, as a fighter, I'm sure you have a pretty specific routine. But I mean, I looked at the video, and Kovalev's laying down. He's taking a nap. Canelo's laying back with his arms, just basically out.
And if you see
spread, you go, what does that do for your psyche? Or I mean, how hard does it make it, to get up for that fight when you're waiting like that?
The cool part about it is that's what we do in boxing. We adjust, so you're being told what's going on, and now you just have to adjust and accept it. You can't get emotionally distraught or messed up. You can't complain, because what's complaining going to do? They're going to go on with how they have prepared things at this point. So
right.
I liked what I saw Canelo do. Canelo was warming up, getting ready for the fight. He was told that the fight wasn't going to happen. He relaxed, pulled it back just a little bit, and then just before the show got ready to go on again, he got up, got that sweat moving again, which is what you should be doing. So I think Canelo handled it the way he was supposed to. But, hey, I personally think that the fight was boring for 11.
I agree.
11 and a half rounds.
Let's talk about that. I agree.
Until the knockout, I thought the fight was boring. Now, let's say that intermission doesn't happen. Does the fight play out?
Maybe it's a better fight.
Yeah,
that's a very good point.
Fight.
Okay, so let's talk about the actual fight. But before we get there, one more question. I think this sets a dangerous precedence, but they received a lot of backlash for that weight. So do you see this probably not happening again, or can you see this in the future? It could happen.
It
again.
has never happened before.
Yeah.
I mean, to the best of my knowledge, not on such a large scale.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying there hasn't been a promoter that wants to compete against another promoter on the same night. I mean, just recently they did Terence Crawford fight on the same night as another show. But the timing was different,
better,
and so it worked out.
Right, sure.
But you usually don't see that, especially when the magnitude of the fight is so big.
Yeah, there's never been a premier boxing event like this being dictated by something that's not even another boxing event.
Absurd.
And by the way, as you pointed out, it wasn't even in Vegas. It wasn't like it was at the MGM Grand Garden Arena and then at the T-Mobile. We're talking about something completely across the country that was dictating what happened with the fight.
We all agree completely.
It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous, yeah.
So let's talk about the actual fight. First of all, and as you know, Canelo Alvarez winning in a knockout early in the 11th round against Kovalev. Now, I thought Kovalev was winning the fight, and there were some people there that thought the fight was extremely close. The judges thought it was extremely close, but here's something I don't understand. I'm not even sure Canelo threw more than 2 or 3 punches in the first round.
couple rounds,
and 2 of the 3 judges gave him the first round.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay,
Are you
Showtime.
serious?
Yes,
that
Showtime.
is true.
Showtime. How the hell does that happen?
Oh, my God.
How does that happen?
I did not know that.
Yes.
I would have assumed across the board. I mean, I'm not saying I'm perfect or anything, but I saw Kovalev win the first 4 rounds.
Right.
If the judges gave any judges gave Canelo any of those first at least 4 rounds,
They did.
You got to question the judging, man. You got to question who that is watching the fight. I mean, were they 80-year-old?
Yeah.
You know how much money Canelo brings to the sport.
Or
But
they have a different incentive.
Everyone says you have to knock Canelo out in order to beat him. And I really do think that Mayweather caught him at the very, very best time that he could have caught
early in his career.
Canelo. Early on in his career. At that point, everything was working for him, so it was like, why change? I'm gonna go in there against Mayweather as a dog. It didn't work out the way he wanted it to, but as you can see, ever since that fight, he's never been the same fighter. And so,
he's much bigger. I mean, I don't want to get into the whole tainted meat stuff here, but I think we all know that was a load of crap. I'm just going to say that. It was a load of crap. He cheated.
Better you say it than me.
Exactly. I don't want to put you in that spot, but he is very large now.
He is.
And he lost a lot of credibility.
And he's not just large, he's wide.
Yes.
He's wide and he's bulky.
Yeah.
And there's something to that.
I want to go ahead.
No, I'm listening to you guys. I've never done anything, and I've really never been around anyone that does anything.
But you're really
the fact that he said he's wide.
Yeah.
He used the word wide and he used the word bulky, and those aren't just normal terms that you would use for someone who's weightlifting and gaining weight.
Right.
So,
I want to look like a boxer. I'm going to put my sunglasses back on. I'm going to pretend like I just had a
You
fight.
look like
I don't have sunglasses on, by the way.
You look like
You're
a
looking
blind
good,
man.
Showtime. You're looking good. All right, so moving forward now with Canelo, and then I want to get to, obviously, your career and a lot of other things in boxing, but who do you think is next for Canelo?
You know what? I don't know. Right after the fight, I looked over at my dad, and we are big Andre Ward fans. And my dad said, I would love to see Dre come back and whoop him.
He beat up Kovalev pretty good.
I do agree with my dad that we both think that Andre Ward could come in, and it would be a really great fight.
That would be an amazing fight. So I want to talk to you about some tragedies that have taken place, obviously, in your sport. We've lost 4 fighters have lost their lives in the last year. Yeah. And we had a trainer that came on. I believe it was Terence Crawford's trainer.
We had Red Spikes.
Yeah.
Terence Crawford's one of his coaches, one of his 2 coaches.
So we asked Red Spikes, we said, what do you think is causing these deaths all of a sudden to happen? I mean, we know boxing is a very violent, dangerous sport. We know that. Yeah. But with that being said, why 4 deaths in the last year? And he came up with a reason that he think could be problematic, and that is steroid use and some of these fighters using performance-enhancing drugs. Now, I have no proof of that. I don't know what his proof is. So I ask you the same question. Why have we lost 4 fighters in the last year?
So I'm going to do this. I hadn't thought of this until you just said it, but if we have 4 deaths, you take a look at what are the common denominators in those 4 deaths. I have not done it yet. However, I was just in Cancun, Mexico with the WBC at their convention, and I told the president that I would like to be a part of whatever committee is helping make this sport safer. And he said, you got it, champ. So right now I'm in the process of making an email, creating an email for the WBC that are going to be a few of the adjustments or changes that I think could help the safety of the sport. But I can talk directly to the situation with Patrick Day because I was a little.
He was the
closer
last fighter who lost his life.
And I was a little closer to that situation. So we find out that he had a really, really grueling 10-round fight about a month before his very last fight. Oh. Right after that fight, I found out that he was in 2 different training camps with world championship fighters, sparring with those guys. So you come out of a really, really grueling fight, and then you get back into some, maybe it's not grueling training, but you get into some really, really high-end training when your body's not ready for it. And then you take a big fight, and the worst has happened. Yeah. So I told President is I think at the end of the day, no one wants to take responsibility for these fighters after the fight. Every they're putting all of the insurance and all the promotion into it, but then after that fight, all of the hands off. We don't see the same doctor again. We don't see the same coaches again. We don't see the same trainers, managers, anything until the next fight.
So isn't this the responsibility of a lot of people that were around him, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It really does. It starts with who's around you, your family, friends, coaches, managers, all of them should say, man, that was a tough fight. Take some time off.
Well, one thing Red Spike stated was that every single performance-enhancing drug law is different in each state. And so a lot of these boxers that are dying, I mean, it's happening not in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And he says that there should be a consistent law across the country. Do you agree with that?
The people that in boxing that are smart, that's what everyone's saying. The people in boxing who want great change, we're all saying we need a union. We need one voice, one face, one reason, one law. And we don't have that right now. You can go to Mississippi, and the only thing you need for Mississippi is just I'm not saying that this is the protocol, but the only thing you may need in Mississippi is just a normal physical. You go to New York, you need a CT scan. You come here and you need a MRI scan as well as the CT scan. So everyone's different, and everybody needs to be the same. Everyone needs to be on the same accord. And I think right now it's just a matter of money. It's a matter of power, and it's a matter of basically demonstrating I have the best law, and fighting is the best in my state.
Well, it's consistent with the NFL, with the NBA, with Major League Baseball. Why would it not be for boxing?
I think the biggest problem with boxing right now is the way boxing grew. I think it grew very choose my words carefully. It grew in a bad way. Not a bad way. You replace that word bad with whatever you want to replace with. But the other sports, none of them even had a chance to be bad. Mm-hmm. They started off on a good foot, on a good way.
Well, they started off as an organization.
Yeah, exactly. And I think boxing is just so far away from being one organization that it's just going to take a very long time to get there. But the fact of the matter is, we're seeing those deaths. We're seeing these really bad instances where guys are being having concussions, and they're all of that kind of stuff. Where now I'm myself, and I'm taking it into my responsibility, saying I don't want to see this anymore. And I'm gonna get some other fighters behind me, and so on and so forth, and it will be better.
Especially with, I'm sure you knew Patrick Day personally.
Yeah,
he was a college graduate.
Yeah,
I mean, he was
smart guy.
He was a very smart guy. He was an extremely, exceptionally, good shape. And I watched that fight, and I'm sure you watched the fight too. But the hit he took in the 8th round, that fight should have been called at that point.
Yeah,
Do you agree?
I agree. I think I think a lot of times, so one thing my dad has always said is the most dangerous person to a fighter is himself.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we don't know when to say stop. A lot of times we don't know how to quit. We have this warrior mentality, this God complex where we think we are invincible. And I think that, again, we have to also look at everyone who's surrounding Patrick Day and these other fighters as well. But we all have to take responsibility, not just of ourselves, but of one another. My dad and the whole team, everybody is responsible for one another,
right?
And that's how we operate as the kind of team that we operate as. I mean, we're gonna get into this fight with Errol Spence, but you say, Shawn, like, how were you able to do it? And I'm going to point to the guys right behind me because they got me there. You know what I mean? Of course, I was the one in there doing everything, but those guys got me there.
Let me ask you this, as a professional fighter and one of the best on the planet at your craft.
Yeah.
How does that affect you? Obviously, you lose one of your friends that you're close to. It would affect you like it would affect anybody else. You go through the grieving process and all that.
Right.
But just from a professional standpoint, do you think about this at all as you're entering the ring? And all? I know you probably don't want to, but you think, wow, this could be my last fight, God forbid. Does that enter your mind, the fact that we've lost 4 fighters in the last year?
We all know the risk. We all know what can happen. It's up to us as the athletes to do everything we can do to make sure we're safe in the ring. The funny thing is, not funny, but the thing is, I'm blessed enough to have a style that is very offensive, but it keeps guys off of me as well, So it's like I was describing to somebody the other day. I'm like, I perform things, I do things in the ring that, they may be grueling and hard to do, but they also keep me safe in the ring. Right. When I got a guy up against the ropes, and you may say, well, why don't you create distance and stop smothering your shots? Well, while I'm smothering my shots, I'm keeping him off of me as well. I'm preventing him from using any offense as well. So a lot of times, at the end of the day, we all know the risks, but we all know what to do to keep ourselves safe in the ring. So it doesn't really enter my mind. Of course, I know what can happen. This situation with Patrick Day, after 3 others, was at this point, I was like, I'm not going to just grieve for this dude for 2 weeks and then move on. I can't continue to do that. And that's when I was like, I got to do more to make sure that this sport is safer.
So we just had a caller call in. He didn't want to go on the air, but he's making the point that he believes deaths could be related to making weight. Do you believe that? How do you feel about that?
So each death, there's something different with each death. I mean, when I just pointed out with Patrick Day, I do think that it was a matter of all of the impact that he had been taking prior to that fight that really was the result of what happened to him. I think some fighters do lose too much weight in a short amount of time. They end up in the ring dehydrated. They end up, even if they leave the ring, they leave the ring and they're urinating blood. They're dizzy in the back room. They don't have any energy after the fight, so on and so forth. So, there are a lot of different protocols, a lot of things that I'm going to look at, we're going to look at in terms of making this sport safer.
If you're just joining us, Showtime Shawn Porter in studio, one of the best pound-for-pound fighters on the planet. I want to talk a little bit about the fight you had in late September with Spence Jr. Of course, the IBF and WC welterweight titles were on the line. I thought you fought a hell of a fight, and I know many others would agree with me.
It was one of the best fights in the last 3 years in boxing.
And many people felt like you actually won that fight. You lost in a split decision. First of all, 2-part question. How frustrating is that when you fight you did a hell of a fight and you lose in a split decision, number one? And number two, why is there no talk about a rematch?
Yeah, you know what? To answer your first question, it's really, really hard for me to be frustrated because I'm so competitive. I think the competitive nature that I have makes me say, okay, well, it takes 2. So he was in there doing what he had to do to win as well. And I think that he fought strong. He fought hard. I thought, I thought I got the best of him, and I thought I won the fight. But my hand doesn't get raised, and I don't have a mentality. I don't have a heart to complain, to feel down and feel sad. I was actually talking to somebody just 2 days ago. I said, believe it or not, it was more heartbreaking for me to have my hand touch the canvas in the fight than it was for me not to have my hand raised.
He wants no part of you again.
And he really doesn't.
He does not want to get in the ring with you again.
He really doesn't. Somebody said, okay, so you've been in the ring with him. Is he really that good? Is he as good as everyone says he is? I said, oh, no. He's definitely good, but he's not better than me. And I think I showed that. I really did prove that on every level, in terms of conditioning, in terms of maneuvers and moves being made, punch selection, the whole 9. It just, the situation happens for me that I am an aggressive fighter, and sometimes I get caught with my hands down.
What was it like fighting in that venue for you?
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. That was everything I thought it was going to be. So I knew I was fighting Errol Spence. Didn't know when. Right. So when I was happy that they finally announced the fight. But then I thought the fight was going to be in New York. So when they announced the fight, I'm getting the call that I'm fighting at the Staples. I'm like, no, I'm not fighting in Barclays. They're like, no, you're fighting at the Staples.
How
Center.
cool is that?
Oh, man, the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
I'm like a kid again when you tell me that I'm fighting at the Staples Center because my first thing I'm thinking is like LeBron's playing there now. But
it's like an NBA player going to Madison Square Garden, right?
It's I think about Oscar fought there.
Sure.
You know, all the greats have fought there, legends have fought there.
Sure.
I'm fighting where Magic Johnson played, and I was like, oh,
that's
man.
Cool.
I'm going to make this the time of my life. And I really did try to enjoy every single bit of this. And I'm blessed, man, because I was able to really enjoy this fight even in the midst of fighting.
And you performed.
Yeah.
It wasn't one of those things where you showed up and you didn't fight well.
Oh, no.
I mean, you performed. You fought a great fight. It was an entertaining fight.
And that's the cool part. The cool part is I didn't just show up and fight hard. Like, I performed, like, I was in the ring thinking and moving, and it was all coming together, you know what I mean?
And for any of the naysayers out there that thought that Spence was going to roll over you, that's exactly what did not happen.
Yeah.
So we got to take a quick break.
Yeah.
And thank you for sticking around for one more
doubt.
segment. I know that you are a Cleveland sports fan, so we are going to get into that with you coming up next. Okay, I will try to not talk too much about some of the Cleveland sports, but we will get to it.
Yeah.
We will get to it when we come back. He is the champ himself, Showtime Shawn Porter, joining us in studio. We'll take your phone calls too, 257-5396, 702-257-5396. Take a quick break. All right, welcome back. It is the Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro, Chris Wynn in studio as well, and always a pleasure and an honor to have one of the best fighters on the planet, Showtime Shawn Porter in studio as well, the champ. And we were just talking, we were having a little fun off the air, talking a little bit about Floyd Mayweather, and we all agree Floyd is probably never going to get back into the ring. But, he was a big moneymaker to the sport, right? I mean, he brought in the dollars.
I make the money I make, honestly.
People love to hate him, and they bought the pay-per-view. The pay-per-view numbers for these fights are not what it once was when we had the Floyd Mayweathers of the world, or back in the 80s and early 90s. Why do you think that is? Do you think we need more personalities in the sport of boxing?
I think we're not seeing enough in between fights. I think that there needs to be more done. I mean, I even went to my first WWE event a couple weeks ago when they did Friday Night SmackDown out in L.A., and I was thinking to myself, like, this is what boxing needs to be, And I think that, still, we kind of alluded to it earlier, but boxing is still in this bubble, and it's like, it's just taking a lot to bring it out of that bubble. But why are you living in that bubble? There's only there's only so many eyes on you.
And it certainly doesn't help when you make the fans and the fighters wait an hour and a half to end a UFC fight before you put on one of the biggest fights on the planet. If you have a question or comment for Showtime Shawn Porter, you can give us a buzz, 257-5396, 702-257-5396. Why don't we start with Andre? Andre, thanks for calling in. You're on with Showtime.
What's up, Andre?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How you doing?
Good.
Champ, what's happening, Champ?
What's happening, y'all?
You know who this is?
What's up, Nat?
This is Andre's dad.
Yeah. What's up, now?
My man.
What's up, now?
For the record, Andre, I have absolutely no idea who you are, but that's okay. Go ahead. That's all right.
Hey, what's up? What's up, Brian? Hey. Anyways, hey, I just wanted to comment real quick, man. Hey, as you know, Shawn, man, I've had the opportunity. I've been following boxing since I was 10 years old. I used to work with Jill Trinidad and all them back in the day.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know, I just want to put it out there for you, man. This guy, Shawn Porter, man, is a class act. There's a lot of people
I
off
agree.
the air. He off the air, he's just as genuine as he is on the air. So,
I agree.
I
agree.
good friends of mine like Trinidad, Vargas, Joel Casamayor. This guy is the most genuine guy I've ever known in my life.
Can I just and by the way, Andre, I completely agree with you. Let me just interject and say this: there are a lot of phony people, a lot of phony promoters in the sport of boxing, as you know.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Oscar De La Hoya. I'm just going to say it right there. I think Oscar De La Hoya is a phony. I think he has plenty of issues of his own, and I think he'll say and do whatever it takes to sell tickets.
Hey, Brian, me and you don't agree in politics, but I'm going to give you that one. I agree with you 100%. But let me just go ahead and say this also. I wanted to comment on the weight issue and the tragedies that have occurred, because as somebody who actually has been kind of working in the business with some of the fighters, I remember, working with Tito back in the day, Trinidad, and, he used to balloon up to 200 pounds, man, just to come down to 154 within 3 months. And to me, it's always about how you cut that weight and how you do it. I remember being at a fight back in the day. I don't know if you guys remember 1980, Salvador Sanchez and Wilfredo Gomez from Puerto Rico in Caesar's Palace. And they fought at 126 pounds featherweight. And the last 2 ounces, Wilfredo Gomez had to cut weight by spitting.
So you think that's the dangers of making weight, Andre? I mean, do you think that? So you're saying that's
I think it's a little bit of that. I think it's how you cut the weight, but I think also the refs have a heavy responsibility in recognizing how the fighter is handling punishment for 12 rounds.
Yeah, no, I agree.
They got to really be careful on how they let them go on round by round. So.
Yeah, I agree.
Just having said that, man, I won't take too much of your time, man. Hey, Shawn, good talking to you, brother. I'll see you at church, man.
Yes, sir. I'll see you later.
Andre, thank you for the call. We appreciate that.
Thanks for the call,
Andre. Let me answer to that real quick. So, again, the WBC, who I personally think is the best sanctioning body in boxing, they're doing it. They're trying to do a few things. They want guys to weigh in outside of their fights. They want to monitor a guy's weight as they approach the fight.
Right. I think that's smart.
So even for myself, I'm sending in weights to the WBC and to different promoters along my way. Like it starts, I think, 6 weeks out from the fight. Every once a week, I'm sending a weight all the way up until that I get on the scale. Another thing they want to do is they want to initiate a weigh-in protocol just before the fight. So again, I don't know if you heard this before, but you have a lot of guys that hypothetically fight at 147 pounds, but they come back to the ring the fight night at 170 pounds. 165, 170 pounds. They're trying to initiate a mandatory weigh-in before the fight. A lot of guys, if they don't make weight, they're not going to let the fight happen. Or if they don't make weight, they're gonna pull money from their. See,
and the average boxing fan doesn't know about this stuff. They don't know what's going on.
Crash dieting is so bad for your body.
Yeah. Oh, no question.
It's the worst.
So I don't want to put you in a position to talk about politics. However, I do need to talk a little bit about this.
I'll talk politics. I don't know anything about it.
So the Nationals, who obviously just won the World Series, they were just at the White House. Kurt Suzuki was wearing a MAGA hat. Ryan Zimmerman was praising Trump's policies. And as you know, this is a very divided time in politics. So what do you make of, for example, the Golden State Warriors when they won the championship? They didn't go to the White House, and they weren't the first team to do that.
It was their decision, though, right?
Yes. Nobody's forcing them, but there are some players on the Nationals that obviously went today, and there were a few that did not go. So what do you make of this time? Like, if Donald Trump invited you to the White House, would you go?
I would go. I would go because I've never been to the White House.
Exactly.
I would go because I've never met a president. So
you've never met Obama? That surprises me a little bit.
Right. Let's say that
because I'm black. What are we doing?
No,
right
no, I'm saying that because you're one of the best fighters in the world, and Obama is a big sports fan.
No, I've never met a president. I've never been inside of the White House. I've seen the White House, but I've never been inside of the White House. I mean, there's a lot that goes on at the White House or with the president that goes beyond his views or what he's trying to do and initiate. And if I can have just an hour to spend with the guy, and that's an hour that he's not doing anything bad to the world.
I agree with that. And this is where Chris and I disagree. And I'll let you respond to this. But I think you're missing an opportunity if you don't go. It doesn't mean you have to support the president. You don't have to go bend a knee and kiss his butt.
Yeah.
But if you have an opportunity, like you said, even if it's not an hour, even if it's just 5 minutes, to talk to him about at least one thing that you disagree with him on, then you could accomplish something. You could, right?
Yeah. What if I meet the president, I shake his hand, and he says something really nice and really thoughtful to me? I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that think he has absolutely nothing thoughtful to say at all. I meet one person, I tell him, hey, Prez said this, he said that. Wow, I didn't think that he had that in him to do that. It may actually change the way your heart feels about the person who's leading the country.
He could spread the word in a positive way. So let's say, for example, that. And Terence Crawford actually stated recently that if he was given a contract to fight you, that he would sign that contract.
Yeah.
But so if you fought Terence Crawford, you beat him, and no one has beaten Terence Crawford, and President Trump called you and said, I want you to come to the White House. You're the new champion. You would absolutely do it.
What we doing? So, hey, what we doing?
He'd probably feed you McDonald's.
I would. I did see that. No, I would go. I would entertain that moment and that opportunity.
So, Shawn, we agree, okay? But somebody like LeBron James, who obviously can't listen. I can't stand Donald Trump too, and these people will attest to this. JD, I can't stand the man.
It, yeah.
Okay, but LeBron, we agree. I agree with LeBron on a lot of things, but LeBron would never take the opportunity, he said, to sit down with that man. Steph Curry also said the same thing. I really, truly believe they're making a mistake. Chris, why do you disagree with me on that?
Oh, I absolutely agree with them, and I think like you guys are talking about policy and things that maybe you could change. Sean mentioned, it would make your heart feel better, to know that you can sit down and actually share with them. But I'm looking at it more on a policy thing from a standpoint of the entire country. I don't think anything changes. I look at those opportunities when athletes or when teams go to visit the president. I look at it as a photo op. I look at it as a situation where there's athletes that they don't even want to be in photographs with Donald Trump. That's how much they are not fans of him as a person. So I think there's more to it than just getting a chance, like you said, mentioned, where I have a certain policy thing I would like to mention to the president, or an outlook or an opinion that I would like to mention to him and have him hear it. I think it's a bigger question.
And again, I mean, like if you want to bring Shawn Porter into the conversation with someone like LeBron James and Stephen Curry, who've said that they will not go to the president, to the White House to meet the president. Again, for the sake of words, there's ignorance on my behalf because I know absolutely or very little about the president at all. I don't follow his views. I don't follow what he's doing day to day, so on and so forth. So for me to say, I'll go. I mean, I'm a kid. I'm a kid that wants to go to the White House. Right. I'm having a photo op.
You're not biased.
Those guys, I'm sure, have followed his views and his opinions and what he's doing, and they don't agree with it. I'm sure if they had it their way, they would do something to, force in a different president or something like that. So there's a lot of ignorance coming from me wanting to be there because I don't know much about the president.
But on the flip side, a guy like Sean Doolittle, who's a decent relief pitcher for the Washington Nationals. I don't think he'll ever win another World Series ring, and I don't think he'll get the opportunity to do this again. So why would he not take that opportunity?
And the reason why you're bringing
again, if you disagree with the president, that's fine, but he's still the president of the United States.
Yeah. Look, it's their choice. Nobody's forcing them to go. I just think they're missing an opportunity, and I believe they're making a mistake. Okay, so we're going to talk about another very difficult subject for Showtime, and that is the Cleveland Browns.
One I know very much about.
A team that's not going to be going to the White House anytime soon to celebrate the championship.
Okay, so those of you who don't know, Showtime.
He don't know me.
No,
the lights will get cut off real quick in here.
You are going to get knocked out by Showtime Shawn Porter. You might never get up.
Especially with my Detroit Lions jersey on.
You think I didn't peep that?
With your Javid best.
Yes. So for those of you who don't know, Showtime Shawn Porter, besides being one of the best fighters on the planet, he also is a big Cleveland sports fan.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little about your Browns. Okay, so there was a lot of hype in the offseason, as you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, let's start with, this is a really weird story. Jermaine Whitehead. He's dropping death threats on social media. There are some fans that are going at him for his lack of performance on the field. He's calling people some very bad words, including cracker. He's calling the B word and some other words. He's using the N word a lot on Twitter. He's making some very ridiculous comments. What do you make of that, being a Cleveland Browns fan?
Let me say this. Do you see or hear any of that going on in the Patriots locker room?
No.
You don't?
No.
So you're telling me that as an organization, you don't know you have something like that in your locker room? Doesn't matter that he's not saying that in the locker room. His energy. Right. His presence, and as everyone's criticizing him on the field, something's not right there, and it starts with the organization and
management,
it just trickles all the way down. Yeah. And right now, there's a lot of disconnect on the field and off the field.
Why does Baker Mayfield look like a 1970s porn star with a mustache?
It was an old picture.
He's got the overcoat. He's got the stash going. It is a brutal picture. I'm not gonna lie to you.
He cut it off. I think his wife said, "I'm not marrying you until you cut it off."
All the hype of Baker Mayfield in the offseason, how good this team was going to be. You see Baker Mayfield in all these commercials now, right? And listen, I get it. This is a sensitive subject for you, but I'm sure you'd be the first one to. Mayfield has not performed very well on the field, but yet he's making all this money off the field. That's got to piss you off a little bit.
It doesn't, man. He did all those shoots, all those commercials. He did that months and months and months ago. All right, he did it when he deserved it. And right now, he doesn't deserve very much.
Isn't he the Adrian Broner of professional football?
No, get out of here. year.
Not even close.
He performed very, very well last year.
He did.
Made sense that coming into this year, that expectation, not only for him, but for the Browns.
Here's his problem. He's only 6'1". He's not very tall, which isn't great for a quarterback.
A lot of his passes get back down.
Yes, the offensive line is very, very porous. He actually was 20 of 31 against the Patriots. He was 27 of 41 against the Broncos. He's been playing fine. The Browns had injuries at corner all year long. They just got Greedy and Denzel Ward back last week. Christian Kirksey's been out the entire year. Yeah. They're going to be fine. Ricky Seals-Jones is playing okay. Nick Chubb has been fumbling too much, but the Patriots got lucky in that game.
That was
the problem is Freddie Kitchens' play calling is horrendous, and I think he's a bad coach.
I do agree that Freddie Kitchens' play calling is extremely suspect.
It's really bad.
It's extremely suspect. And so I'm the kind of guy that once you're a lot like the president, once you're designated, I gotta rock with you no matter what. You know. So
what is it going to be like for you? Because you call Vegas your hometown. How cool is it going to be for you when the Raiders come to town and assuming that Cleveland will play a game here, which they will eventually? That's going to be. Are you going to be on the field for that?
I'm a big football fan. I'm not just a big Browns fan. I'm a big football fan. So whenever the Browns are not playing, I will be at the stadium. I will not be wearing black and silver. My son, who is 2 years old, will only know brown and orange, okay?
I like
he
that.
He lives here, and he will only know brown and orange.
So
that's reasonable.
You're not a bandwagon fan. I appreciate that.
I'm not
about
a bandwagon
you. Okay,
fan.
so what would you make about these Clippers fans in L.A.? So I'm watching the game last night, right? And all these Clippers fans, all these we're not talking about Billy Crystal, the ones that have been there for years, right? When they struggled, like the Lamar Odom days and way back when. But there's so many of these Clipper bandwagon fans now. I mean, I don't have respect for fans like that.
I've never had respect for bandwagon people. I think whoever you're with, rock with them till the end.
Yeah.
Everybody's got something to pull on to, wants to have something to pull on to at least. And I think that there's a lot of people that because they don't like LeBron or because everybody else is a Lakers fan, they want to jump on the board with the Clippers. So the good part about it is that the Clippers are doing good. So you got two big organizations right there in LA doing good.
You ever met LeBron?
Just one time, yeah.
What was that conversation like?
It was smooth, man. We have a mutual friend. So when I seen him, he called me by my nickname. Everybody calls me SP.
Oh, SP.
He said, SP,
right.
What's up, baby? And I was like, oh, he knows my name. You know?
How cool is that though? Because what I appreciate about you, you're a sports fan, right?
Yeah.
You love football, but you love basketball. You love all these sports, right?
Look, it's crazy. I was when I was in LA, Tampa Bay Buccaneers played Sunday. We fought Saturday. Tampa Bay Buccaneers fought Sunday. On Sunday, going down the elevator with my fiance, Mike Evans gets on the elevator, and I'm like, I don't want to say anything. He looks over at me, says, "Yo, that was a good fight last night." I said, "You watched the fight?" He said, "Yeah, man, that was a great
that's
fight."
So cool, isn't it?
That is awesome.
That's so awesome.
I was like, "Oh man," he said, "Big fan." I'm like, "Stop it, man! I'm a big fan of yours." You know, so yeah, that's been the best.
Well,
one of the best parts.
Let's talk positive state of Ohio football here. College football. Are you an Ohio State fan?
I'm not crazy about college football, but of course I do keep up with Ohio State.
We have a caller who wanted to ask him that very question. Number 257-5396. Let's go to Al. Al, you're on with SP. What's going on, Al?
What's up, Al?
How you doing, guys?
Good.
Hi, champ. That was going to be my question if you had a collegiate team. I'm from New Orleans, an LSU guy, and it looks like if things go well this week, we could be headed towards a playoff maybe with Ohio State.
Nice. That sounds good to me. No, I don't keep up with college football. I love the NFL, so I'm always watching those guys like when they're coming out, combine, all that kind of stuff, and just watching out who's going to be next, you know?
Do you, as a professional fighter, you've been doing this for a long time, do you notice who's singing ringside? For example, if there's a huge celebrity.
Heck yeah, I know.
So you know exactly who's there.
Yeah.
All these fighters do too, right? They know who's watching.
I'm pretty sure they do. I mean, the first time it happened to me, I was in Atlantic City. I might have been 16-0.
AC.
Maybe 16-0, something like that. I get in the ring, and, you know, I'm doing my normal thing when I get in the ring, and I look up, and I look out and I see Shane Mosley is
Sugar.
And so I'm like, oh my God, Shane's here to see me.
That's
you know,
cool.
And that was big.
And this is when you were very young.
Yeah, and that was big. This fight, I get in the ring, I'm walking around, and I see that Mayweather is sitting right there with Leonard Ellaby. And
how cool is that?
And oh, my first time, I'm so competitive. My thought goes, oh yeah, you about to watch this. That's the only thing I could think was you about to watch this. And
does that make you? So does that help your focus or make you a little more nervous?
No, it does make me nervous. I think if anything, it may help to focus for me at least. You know, because it really makes me turn everything on. You know, when you know everybody's out there watching.
Who is the most famous, because of what you do and how well-known you are, who is the most famous person that you met? You just mentioned LeBron. That's pretty high. But have you ever met anyone where you kind of like were a little bit nervous to meet them and they knew who you were?
I'm nervous to meet everybody. I was nervous to meet LeBron. I was nervous to meet Mike Evans. I met Steve. I wasn't even fighting. I met Steve Harvey at a fight. I was nervous to meet him.
Wow.
The coolest thing that happened to me at my fight, I invited this gentleman to come to the fight. Text him, never heard from him. Day of the fight, I get a call. Hey, he out here. What you want me to do? I'm like, buy him a ticket. I'll give you the money. I'm in the back room getting ready. I go to the bathroom. When I come out of the bathroom, Bobby Brown is sitting right there in the locker room. Yeah. So
how does that work? Like, do you have a conversation with him?
I had someone, a mutual friend who's in that industry, told me that I could come watch him play. He was here at the Orleans. And I went down to watch him.
You didn't just start singing a Whitney Houston song or anything like that?
No. But I sing Bobby Brown like almost daily.
You didn't start singing "I Will Always Love You."
No. So I met him and I invited him to come to the fight.
How
and
cool is that?
X amount of months later, I never hear anything from him. He never texts back. I'm like, forget you too, then. And then I come out and he's right there in my locker room.
So like when you're like a 14, 15-year-old kid, if somebody said to you, the most recognizable basketball player, arguably of all time, would not only know who you are, but call you by your nickname and be a fan of yours, would you have believed it?
No. I still don't believe what's going on in my world, man. I can't believe that I perform the way I perform, to do the things that I do. And it's just really one of those things that makes me really recognize that there's a God, and he is definitely blessing me.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of performing, you're very close friends with Terence Crawford.
Yeah. I'm glad you went back to that.
Yes. If he agrees to this fight and if the money is right, would you fight him?
If he agrees, if something happens and he's like, hey, man, I want to fight you, we'll make it happen.
Please do it in Vegas, Shawn. Please.
That'll be one of the stipulations then.
Please do it in Vegas. Because we got to talk about it, and I want to go to the fight. I can't always
Do you know how good of a fight that would be?
That'd be an
amazing
fight.
An unbelievable fight.
Great tactical
and
fight.
based
too.
on your performance last month, I mean, there'd be a lot of interest in that fight too. So I agree. I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So the Browns. Let's go back there real quickly before I let you go. Tell me a little bit. Where do you think they end the season, and where are they going here?
You know what? I'm gonna be honest. Consistency is what I look at whenever it comes to anything. They have been consistently bad with penalties, bad with play calling, bad with dropping the ball. I mean, we see Odell Beckham Jr. He drops the ball.
Yeah.
If the ball gets to him, if
Odell
it's not
Beckham cares more about hanging out with Bieber than he does maybe catching footballs.
There's a lot that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
In a short amount of time to do it.
I agree.
I would love to see them win out. I really don't see that being realistic. We put a whooping on the Ravens week 5, and I don't know if we're going to beat them the next time we play them.
Throwing in a quick little tidbit there, by the way. There's a guy coming back that can be a difference maker for your team, and that, of course, is Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, man.
Tremendous career at Kansas City. We all understand what we went through there with all the off-the-field stuff, but he's a guy that could be a big factor for you guys.
Rich Gannon was the one calling the game yesterday, and he said, near the end of the game, he said, now it's not about play calling, it's about playmakers.
Yes.
And you got to go to your playmakers. I think that might be our biggest problem is we don't go to our playmakers enough.
You know what the funny thing is? Because I'm such a degenerate gambler. I bet on all sports, boxing, and I did bet on Canelo for the knockout. But I was thinking to myself, are there any other athletes on the planet, definitely not in boxing, that I root for, and I don't have to bet on them to root for? You're one of the few. So I know you must be very honored.
Yeah.
I don't have to have a wager on you.
That's actually very true.
I just watch the fight.
Awesome.
I want you, because seriously, I'm not saying this to kiss your ass. It's the truth.
Yeah.
You are one of the nicest guys and one of the most genuine people in any
You know why, Shap? You know why, right? It's because he's a Midwest guy. Just like me and JB.
Baby.
These Midwestern guys.
We finally
nice
agree
guys.
on something.
Yeah.
All right. I ain't even got to say it. He know what it is.
You know the deal, Shap. That's
It's
why.
true though. There's a lot of people, professional. It's like you don't have an ego. You're very confident in your abilities.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between that and having this ego and talking down about others.
Yeah.
And Spence did that to you a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm trying to remember the event the last fight that I went to. You two guys. I think it was a Showtime fight, and you were there, and you were promoting your fight. And I just saw on TV the way he was talking to you, and I'm like, God, I just want you to knock him out right there.
Was it Mayweather? Excuse me, was it Pacquiao and Thurman?
It was the Pacquiao fight, and I was right there, and I was watching you guys do that. But you're just a class act.
Or even seeing the parallels between Shawn and someone like Adrian Broner, who treated Al Bernstein like a second-class citizen.
He called Al Bernstein the N-word.
He did.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. Shawn, always appreciate it, my man, when you come in studio and take the time to join us. It means a lot to me.
I feel inclined to say this. Well, thank you, but I also feel inclined to say that I have a show that airs on FS1. Inside PBC Boxing airs twice a month, and we're coming back this month. I think we air this weekend. That'll be the first episode back since September. So
let's have you on again and promote that.
Yeah, for sure.
I would love to. Shawn, thank you so much for being here, man.
Hey, text
really
me some more, man. You don't text me enough.
I will. All right, Showtime.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Shawn.
SP. Never be Showtime.
Guys,
all right, thank you so much. All right, we're going to take a 21-hour break. We'll see you same time, same place tomorrow, folks. Dina Titus will be joining us tomorrow. That'll be fun. And Stretch Sanders as well. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Sean Hannity is coming up next.